I can't sleep. It's 3:14 in the morning, and I'm lying here with my eyes wide open, staring at a ceiling I've stared at for 11 years and never actually seen. And I keep thinking about her hands. That's the thing that won't leave me alone tonight. Not her voice, not what she said the last time I saw her, not even the letter. Just her hands. The way she held a clay pot like it was something precious. Like even a thing covered in dirt deserved to be handled with care. I keep telling myself I don't miss her. I've been telling myself that for 6 months now, and I'm getting really tired of how bad I am at lying to myself. She came back into my life like a verdict. That's the only way I can describe it. Like something I already knew deep down was finally being said out loud. And I had every reason to hate her. Every reason in the world. She was the one holding the paper. She was the one with the company name on the door and the legal team on speed dial, and the plan that didn't include any of us. And I still kept thinking about her hands. God. It's 3:15 now. I've replayed the whole thing so many times that the edges have gone soft, like a photograph you've handled too much. The first time I saw her, the competition, the afternoon everything shifted. The day she walked back in wearing a completely different version of herself. Or what I thought was a completely different version. Turns out I just hadn't been paying attention to the right things. I'm going to tell you everything. Because I need to put it somewhere. Because the ceiling isn't helping and I haven't been able to talk to anyone about this the way it actually was. Not just the facts, not just what happened, but what it felt like from the inside. So, Bella, from the beginning. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. The Millbrook Community Gardening Competition is not glamorous. I want to be clear about that right from the start, because if you've never been to one, you might imagine something charming. Little tents, lemonade, women in sun hats, that kind of thing. And yes, technically there are tents. There is, on occasion, lemonade. But it is also 6 in the morning on a Saturday in April. Your knees are wet from kneeling in damp grass, your back hurts, and the woman 3 plots down from you is playing country music from a portable speaker at a volume that should be illegal before noon. I had been competing for 4 years. Not because I expected to win. I had won exactly once, and that was the tomato category, and I'm not sure the judges fully understood what they were looking at. But because those Saturday mornings were mine. They belonged to no one else, not to the shop, not to the calendar, not to the voice inside my head that spent the rest of the week cataloging everything I hadn't done yet. Just me, the dirt, and whatever I had decided to grow that season. That year I was doing heritage roses, 3 varieties. A deep burgundy one that had taken me 2 winters to coax into something worth showing. A pale pink that bloomed late and smelled like something I couldn't name but kept trying to, and a white one that I was privately convinced was going to be the most beautiful thing at the whole event, and publicly pretending I wasn't sure about. I set up my plot early that morning. I knew most of the other competitors by then. Martha with her zucchini, always too large, always displayed with the same quiet pride. Deborah from the church auxiliary, perpetual runner-up in the herb category, perpetual good sport about it. The Nguyen sisters, who competed together every year with a synergy that made other people feel like they were doing everything wrong. I knew everyone. And then there was the plot next to mine. It had been empty for the previous 3 years. Someone had registered for it once, early on, and never showed up. And after that, it just sat there. I'd gotten used to the extra breathing room. I'd spread out a little. One of my rose canes had technically crossed the plot boundary, but no one was using it, so. That morning, someone was using it. She arrived at 6:43. I know because I checked my watch when I heard someone dragging something heavy across the grass, and I thought, with full seriousness, that Martha had somehow acquired a new and enormous zucchini display apparatus. But it wasn't Martha. It was a woman about my age, 38, maybe early 40s, I wasn't sure, carrying what appeared to be an entire garden's worth of supplies in 2 trips from a car parked badly at the edge of the field. She had dark hair pulled back in a way that had started the day neat and was already losing the fight. She was wearing overalls over a faded green shirt, and she moved like someone who had done physical work before and didn't feel the need to make it look effortful. She didn't introduce herself right away. She just started setting up, and I watched her for probably 45 seconds before I realized I was staring and looked back at my roses. "You're over the line," she said. I turned around. She was pointing at my rose cane, the one that had drifted. "Oh." I reached over and redirected it. "Sorry, no one's been in that plot for a while." "I know," she said. "I requested it specifically. The light hits differently on this side of the tent." She said it without arrogance, just as a fact, like someone who had thought about it and acted accordingly. "Are you competing in the floral category?" I asked. Because what she was unloading looked like flowers. I could see the tips of stems wrapped in cloth, the careful way she was handling each bundle. "Dahlias," she said. "You?" "Heritage roses." She looked at my plot then. Actually looked at it. Not the polite glance and nod that most people gave, but the way you look at something when you want to understand it. Her eyes moved from one variety to the next, and then to the way I'd arranged the display, and then back to the burgundy one. "That's a Cardinal de Richelieu," she said. I blinked. "You know heritage roses?" "My grandmother grew them." She turned back to her own plot. She had 7 varieties. I could name all of them before I could read. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing, which is a thing I do sometimes when something unexpectedly moves me, and I don't want to show it. We worked in silence for the next hour. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind that exists between people who are both absorbed in the same kind of work. I became aware, slowly, of small things about her. The way she hummed under her breath, without seeming to know she was doing it. The precision with which she handled each dahlia. The fact that she had brought a level to make sure her display table was perfectly even. At 8:30 she pulled out a thermos and poured coffee into the lid and offered it to me without asking if I wanted any. I took it. "Bella," she said. "Joyce," I said. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, and her hand was warm, and she had a small callus on the inside of her right index finger, exactly where mine was, from gripping a garden trowel the wrong way for too many years. That was the first time. That was all it was. A competition on a Saturday in April. Coffee from a thermos. A handshake that lasted exactly as long as handshakes are supposed to last. Bella finished 3rd in the dahlia category. I finished 2nd in floral. Martha won zucchini, as she always did. On my way out, Bella was still packing up. She looked up when I passed her plot. "Same time next year?" she said. I laughed. I don't know why I laughed. It wasn't especially funny. It was just the right thing to say. Maybe that was what made me laugh. "Same time next year," I said. And then I went home and thought nothing of it at all. Or that's what I told myself for the next 3 years. The thing about the Millbrook competition is that it happens once a year, one Saturday in April. 4 hours of setting up, 2 hours of judging, an hour of award announcements, and then everyone packs up and goes home, and you don't see most of these people again until the following April. So for 3 years, I saw Bella for one Saturday at a time. And for 3 years I told myself that was a very normal amount to be glad about seeing someone. We developed a routine. That's what I called it. A routine. She always arrived at 6:43, give or take a few minutes. She always brought enough coffee for 2. We worked in comfortable silence for the first hour, and then we talked. About the plants, about what had gone well and badly in our respective gardens over the past year. About the particular politics of the competition itself, which were surprisingly contentious for something involving flowers. In the 2nd year, she brought dahlias again. "I'm loyal to what I know," she said, which made me feel something I didn't examine. And I brought my roses, extended now to 5 varieties. I had added a deep orange one specifically because I'd read that orange dahlias and burgundy roses created an interesting visual conversation, and I thought she might notice. She noticed. "Joyce," she said, looking at my display, "did you—" "The light was interesting on that side of the color wheel," I said. I was curious. She looked at me for a moment. Then she smiled. Not the polite smile of someone being nice, but the real one. The one that moved slowly, like it was starting from somewhere deep. "They look good together," she said. I turned back to my roses and said, as if I hadn't thought about it much. In the 3rd year, she won 1st place in the dahlia category for the first time. I found out from Deborah before the announcements, and I felt something that I can only describe as disproportionately glad. Not like hearing good news about an acquaintance. Like hearing good news about someone you'd been privately rooting for without admitting it. When they called her name, she made a sound. Small, involuntary. The kind of sound you make when something you wanted very much turns out to be real. And I put my hand on her arm without thinking. She looked at me. I took my hand away. "You deserved it," I said. "Those dahlias were genuinely beautiful this year." "Thank you, Joyce," she said. Quietly. Like the words meant something. I thought about that moment for a disproportionate number of weeks afterward. Not with alarm, exactly. More like the way you think about a song you heard somewhere and can't quite place. You're not distracted by it. It's just there, running underneath things. I convinced myself this was what it felt like to have a friend you only saw once a year. An intensity of compressed time. 4 hours carrying the weight of 12 months. Of course things felt heightened. Of course a small gesture felt charged. That was just the nature of it. This is what I do. I build a very reasonable explanation, and I live in it. That year, when we were packing up, Bella asked me if I'd ever thought about joining a garden society. There was one in the city. Real meetings, real people, year-round. She'd been a member for 2 years. "I work Saturdays," I said. Which was true. "They also meet on Thursday evenings," she said. I said I'd think about it. I didn't think about it. I thought about the fact that she had looked up when they met, and what that might mean, and then I thought very firmly about other things. It wasn't until the 4th year that everything shifted. Or, no, that's not right. The 4th year is when I stopped being able to pretend it hadn't shifted. I need to get the timeline straight because I've muddled it in my memory, the way you muffle the parts that make you feel most foolish. So let me be precise. The 4th competition was the last Saturday in April, 3 years ago. Bella showed up at 6:42. She'd cut her hair, shorter, just past her chin. And for a moment when I saw her across the field, I felt my chest do something strange. Not alarming. Just strange. Like a missed step on a staircase you've walked 1,000 times. She didn't look different. She looked exactly like herself, just with less to hold back with a clip. And I thought, oh, that's a nice haircut. I thought, I'm going to stop thinking about her haircut now. We had coffee. We worked. The conversation was easy, as it always was. She'd had a difficult year, she told me, without saying exactly how. Something with the company she worked for. Some kind of change in direction that hadn't sat right with her. She'd left. She was figuring out what came next. She said it with a steadiness that I recognized as the kind of steadiness that takes a lot of work to maintain. "Are you okay?" I asked. She considered this seriously. I liked that about her, that she didn't answer fast, that she actually thought about what was true. "I think I'm becoming okay," she said. We finished 2nd and 3rd, respectively. I won, she came 2nd. She congratulated me in the way she said my name when she did, warm and particular, like she was glad it was me specifically, did the thing again. the missed step. And then, as we were leaving, she dropped something, a folder, papers scattered across the damp grass, and she crouched to gather them. And I crouched at the same time, and for a moment we were very close, and I could smell the faint trace of something warm and clean from her hair, and she looked up and found my face right there. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then we both started picking up papers. Too fast, too focused. The way you become very efficient when you need your hands to be doing something. "Thank you," she said. "Of course," I said. I drove home and sat in my car for 10 minutes in my own driveway. I was not panicking. I was being very calm. I was being extremely, deliberately, carefully calm. I told myself, she's a woman I see once a year at a flower competition. That's all. I told myself that for a long time. I got fairly good at it. And then, 8 months later, she knocked on the door of my shop. I own a small plant shop. Joyce's greenhouse. Not original, I know. But it was either that or something pretentious. And I've always believed that a plant shop should feel like somewhere you can breathe, not somewhere you need to perform. We do houseplants, some outdoor perennials, a small section of herbs, and a narrow back corner that I carved out years ago for unusual varietals and rare cuttings that almost no one buys but everyone stops to look at. It's not a big business. It never was going to be. But it's mine, and it's in a building I've rented for 11 years from a landlord named Patricia, who is 81 and cares more about her garden club than her commercial properties, and has kept my rent frozen since 2019 because she thinks I make the street look nice. Bella walked in on a Tuesday in January. I was repotting a monstera and had soil on both forearms and was trying to convince a particularly resistant root ball to cooperate when I heard the bell above the door and said, without looking up, "Welcome in. Let me know if you need help finding anything." "Joyce." I looked up. I actually knocked the pot. She caught it. She was already close enough to catch it. She'd come straight to the counter, which people sometimes did when they knew someone behind it. She was wearing a coat I hadn't seen before, a dark charcoal one, and her hair was longer again, almost back to where it had been. And she looked tired, not exhausted. The particular kind of tired that comes from carrying something for a long time without setting it down. "Bella," I said. And then, because I had soil on my arms and had knocked a pot and was staring, "Hi." "Hi," she said. And she smiled, and it was the real one. I wiped my hands on a cloth that didn't help very much. "What are you doing here?" "I looked you up," she said. "I was in the area, and I thought it might be nice to see where you actually lived." She paused. "Your shop, I mean. Where the shop lives." I looked at her. She looked back at me. There was a beat of silence that felt very different from our comfortable silences at the competition. "Let me show you around," I said. I gave her the full tour. All of it. The front room, the herbs, the back corner where the unusual varietals lived, the small greenhouse attachment where I propagated cuttings. She walked slowly, the way she'd looked at my roses that first morning, touching leaves gently with the back of her fingers. She asked questions. Real questions, the kind that showed she'd been paying attention to things I'd said over the years. She knew the names of 3 of my plants already, from things I'd mentioned at the competition. I noticed this. I didn't say anything about it. We ended up in the back corner with 2 cups of tea I'd made on the small electric kettle I kept back there, and she told me what had been happening since April. She'd started a consulting company. Small, still finding its shape. Something about commercial real estate. Analysis, she said. Asset evaluation. I didn't fully understand the specifics, but she said it with the steadiness she had when she talked about things that were hard but worth it. "Are you building something you actually want?" I asked. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't entirely read. Something warm and complicated. "I'm trying to," she said. After that, she started coming in. Not on a schedule. That would have been too deliberate, and I think we were both being very careful not to be deliberate about it. But maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. She'd come on a Tuesday morning or a Thursday afternoon, usually when the shop was quiet. She'd walk through, look at the new things, help me with nothing in particular, and we'd talk. It was different from the competition. The competition had structure. 4 hours, a purpose, an end time. This had no edges. She could come in at 10 and leave at 1, and neither of us would have named the 3 hours for what they were. My assistant at the shop, a woman named Carrie, 26, whose superpower is saying exactly what everyone else is thinking, asked me in February with great casualness who the woman with the charcoal coat was. "A friend," I said, "from the gardening competition." Carrie made a face that I chose to ignore. "She comes in a lot for someone who lives across the city," Carrie said. "She's in the area sometimes," I said, "for work." "Right," Carrie said. I did not pursue this conversation. Here is what I was doing, and I can say it clearly now because I've had 3 years to understand it. I was managing the situation. I had built a version of it that I could live in without it asking me to be honest. Bella was my friend. We had an unusual friendship, compressed time, annual meetings, now expanded to occasional visits. Friendships could be intense. Friendships could feel significant. That didn't mean anything had to be examined more closely. I was very good at this. I had been very good at this for a long time, long before Bella, but she was testing it in a way nothing had before. Because the thing was, and this is the part I kept filing away, kept putting in the drawer labeled things I'm not looking at right now. The thing was that she made everything feel more particular. The light in the shop felt different when she was there. Not brighter or warmer, just more defined somehow. Like everything had better edges. My words came out more carefully chosen. I noticed details I didn't usually notice. The way the steam from her tea caught the light from the window. The particular sound of her laugh at something I said, which was quieter than you'd expect and came slightly delayed, like she was genuinely surprised to find something funny. I noticed too much. That was the truth I kept not looking at directly. And then March came. She came in on a Wednesday, unusual for her, and she didn't look at the plants the way she normally did. She sat on the stool near the back counter and wrapped both hands around her tea and looked at it. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing." "Bella." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "The deal I've been working on for 4 months fell apart today. The partner pulled out. And I know this is business. I know this is how it goes. But I'd been building this thing and I really thought..." She stopped. Her jaw was tight in the way that meant she was deciding whether to keep going. "You thought this one was going to work," I said. "I thought this one was the thing that was going to make it feel real." She exhaled slowly. That this was going to be the point where I stopped feeling like I was doing something brave and started feeling like I was doing something that actually existed. I didn't say anything immediately. She'd told me something real. It deserved a real response, not the first thing I thought of. "It exists," I said. "What you're building exists. The deal falling through doesn't undo the building." She looked up at me. "It's still real," I said. "Even when it's hard." She held my gaze for a moment that was very slightly too long to be nothing. Then she looked back down at her tea. "Thank you," she said, quietly. I went back to what I was doing. My hands were steadier than I felt. We didn't talk much for the rest of the afternoon, but she stayed for 2 more hours. And when she left, she touched my arm, brief, light, not asking anything, and said she'd see me soon. I stood at the window after she left and watched until I couldn't see her anymore, and then I stood there for a moment longer. That night, I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I told myself it was the coffee I'd had too late. I was running out of things to tell myself. In April, she came to the competition. We talked the way we always talked. She won this time. First place dahlias, a streak now. I was genuinely, uncomplicatedly glad. On the drive home, I thought about how she'd looked when they called her name. The way her chin lifted slightly. The specific sound she made. I thought, I know all her sounds. I thought, when did I learn all her sounds? I thought very firmly about traffic. And then, 6 weeks later, in a meeting I didn't know she was in, I found out what her company actually did. But before we go any further, if you made it here, you already know how this feels. That moment when something you thought you understood completely turns into something you don't recognize at all. So do me a favor right now. Hit the like button. It takes 1 second, and it helps me bring you more stories like this one. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on the bell. So YouTube tells you the moment a new story drops here. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever found out something about someone that changed everything you thought you knew? And realized the hardest part wasn't the information itself, but what it forced you to finally admit to yourself? Write it for me down there. I read every single one. And tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city. I'll leave a heart. Okay, back to Joyce. The building my shop is in is called Hargrove Row. It's not special to look at. A 2-story brick building on a side street in a neighborhood that the city planners would probably describe as transitional, which is a word that means something specific in commercial real estate, and means nothing good for anyone actually living or working there. There are 4 other small businesses on the ground floor. A tailor, a used bookshop, a woman who does alterations, and has been there longer than anyone, a framing studio. We all know each other. We share 1 parking space in the back by quiet mutual agreement and a habit of leaving coffee outside each other's doors on bad weather mornings. Patricia, my landlord, 81, Garden Club, had owned the building for 30 years. I knew she was planning to retire eventually. I knew her daughter had opinions about the property. I was not prepared for what happened on a Tuesday in May. I was setting up a window display when I heard Carrie say, with unusual formality, "I'll let her know you're here." I turned around. There were 3 women in suits, and behind them, a little apart, holding a leather folder and looking at my shop, the way she'd looked at my roses the first time, with full attention, trying to understand the structure, was Bella. She saw me the exact moment I saw her. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then she said, "Joyce," and her voice was even. Not cold, just even, like someone who had decided on the way here what register to speak in. "Bella," I said. My voice did something I didn't intend, came out smaller than I meant it to. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Can we have a few minutes?" What she told me, in the quiet back room where we'd shared 100 cups of tea, where she'd sat on the stool and wrapped her hands around the mug and told me about the deal that fell through. What she told me there was this. Her company had been acquired, in the last 6 months, by a commercial development firm. The firm had purchased Hargrove Row. They were converting the building. All commercial tenants were being offered a negotiated exit package. We had 90 days. She laid it out clearly, in the language of business, and she looked at me the whole time. When she finished, I didn't say anything for a long moment. "You knew," I said. "When you came in here, when you came in all those months, you knew this was where you were working." "No," she said. And I believed her. I didn't want to, but I believed her. The acquisition happened in January. I was hired to do the tenant evaluation in February. I came in the first time before any of that. I didn't know this was on my list until March. "March," I said. "You came in on a Wednesday in March and you were upset about a deal falling through." Something crossed her face. "That deal was something else," she said. "Joyce, did you know then? When you sat there and I told you that what you were building was real." "I found out 2 days later," she said. And I want to tell you that She stopped, straightened. This is my job. This isn't what I would choose. If I could. 90 days, I said. She closed her eyes briefly. Yes, she said. I stood up. I walked to the front of the shop without a plan. I needed to move, or I was going to do something that I didn't want to do in front of her, in front of Carrie, in front of 3 women in suits holding folders. Joyce, she said, behind me. I turned around. She was standing in the doorway of the back room, and her hands were at her sides, and she looked, not corporate, not professional, not the version of herself I'd just encountered for the first time and hated. She looked like the woman at the competition with the thermos and the dahlias. She looked like the woman on the stool, hands around the mug, telling me something was hard. She looked like herself. I'm sorry, she said. And she said it the way she said real things. Slowly, like she'd checked it for truth first. I looked at her for a long moment. You should go finish your evaluation, I said. She held my gaze for another second. Then she left. The bell above the door rang, and then went quiet. Carrie appeared from somewhere. She didn't say anything. She just came and stood near me, not close enough to touch, just close enough to be there, which was exactly the right thing to do. I stood in my shop, the one with the monstera she'd helped me catch, the back corner where we'd drunk tea on a dozen Tuesdays, the rare varietals she knew the names of because she'd paid attention. And I let myself be furious, not at her specifically. Or yes, at her specifically, but also at the whole shape of it, the absurdity of it, that I had spent 4 years being careful, being reasonable, telling myself all the right things. And the universe had decided that the woman I'd been quietly not thinking about was the one holding the papers that were taking away the thing I'd built. I went home that night, and I was fine. I had dinner. I called my sister. I watched half of something on television and didn't absorb any of it. At 11:30, I picked up my phone, put it back down, picked it up again. I typed, I need you to know that I'm not going to pretend this is okay. I deleted it. I typed, I understand this is your job. I deleted that too. I put the phone down and lay there in the dark, and somewhere around midnight I started to cry. Not hard, just quietly. The way you cry about something that's been accumulating for longer than you realized. I wasn't only crying about the shop. I think I knew that even then. Over the next few weeks, I did what I needed to do. I called a lawyer. I talked to the other tenants. I learned a great deal about commercial lease law in a very short period of time. I looked at other properties. I grieved in the way you grieve a place that has held you, not dramatically, but genuinely, in the spaces between other things. And then, on a Saturday in late May, Bella came back. Not with the folder, not in the charcoal coat, in jeans and a shirt I recognized from the second year of the competition, and she looked like she'd been deciding whether to come for longer than it had taken to drive there. I was alone in the shop. The sign said open. She pushed the door. The bell rang. We looked at each other. I'm not here about the building, she said. I waited. I'm here because... She stopped, tried again. I need you to know that what I had here, what we had here, was not part of any calculation. I need you to know that. Okay, I said. I'm not sure you believe me. I'm working on it. She nodded. She stood near the door like she hadn't decided yet whether she'd earned the right to come further in. I found you another building, she said. On Pierce Street. It needs work, but the light in the front room it's actually better. And the back space is bigger. I contacted the owner. The lease terms are... Bella, I said. She stopped. Why? She looked at me, and I watched her decide, very slowly and very deliberately, to stop being careful. Because I hate this, she said. Because I've been sitting with the fact that my work cost you something real, and I can't undo it, and I needed to try to do something that wasn't nothing. She paused. And because you matter to me, in a way that I have not known what to do with for a very long time. The shop was very quiet. Outside I could hear a car going past, the tailor's radio playing something soft through the shared wall. I sat with what she'd said for a moment. I sat with all of it. The shop, the folder, the years of Saturdays in April, the Tuesdays with the tea, the dropped folder on damp grass, the missed step on the staircase, all of it. And I let it be exactly as large as it was. Not managed, not filed away, just present. I know, I said finally. I know, and I stopped. Felt the words rearrange themselves into something true. I've been doing a lot of work for a long time not to know what to do with you either. Something moved in her face. Not a smile. Something quieter and more careful than a smile. Something that looked like relief that had learned to be patient. I know, she said. And we stood there for a while. Not solving it. Not making it into something it wasn't ready to be yet. Just standing in the shop together with the truth finally present in the room. We didn't become something easy after that conversation. I want to be honest about that, because I think the way these things are supposed to go, in the version of the story where everything works out, is that the truth finally being said opens a door, and you walk through it together, and what's on the other side is simpler than what came before. That's not what happened. What happened was harder and more real, and I think, in the end, more honest than that. She sent me the information about the Pierce Street building. I went and looked at it on a Thursday morning, alone, without telling her. She was right about the light in the front room. It came through 2 large windows and hit at an angle that made every plant look like a painting. The backspace was bigger. There was a greenhouse attachment, original to the building, that needed glass replaced, but had good bones. I stood in the empty front room for 20 minutes. Then I called my lawyer and asked about the lease terms. Bella and I talked on the phone twice that week. Careful conversations. Neither of us quite reaching for the thing that had been said in the shop. There was work to be done. Logistics, timelines, transition plans. And we were both, I think, using the work as a way to stay close to each other without having to be honest about why we wanted to stay close. On a Friday night in June, she came by the shop late, after closing, because I'd called and said I was staying to pack and didn't want to be alone with it. She brought food. We ate on the floor among half-packed boxes, and she told me about the first plant she'd ever grown herself, not at her grandmother's house, not with help from anyone. A pothos in a dorm room in college. It died 3 times before she figured out she was overwatering it. "What did you do when it died the first time?" I asked. "Cried," she said, without any embarrassment about it, and then went and bought another one. I looked at her. The way she was sitting, cross-legged, easy, like she'd always had permission to be in this space, and the way the light caught the side of her face from the lamp I'd put on the floor, and the slight curve of her mouth when she talked about the pothos that died. I looked at all of it, and I thought, I'm not going to get to keep this. Not the way I want it. It wasn't a dramatic realization. It came quietly, the way important things often do. We were too tangled. Her company had taken my building. I was in the middle of a move that I was managing, but hadn't quite forgiven yet. We were, something that didn't have the right conditions to grow right now. Too much weight in the soil. Too many things unresolved that weren't about feelings, but about real, concrete, practical damage. I think I also knew, and this is the part that's hardest to say, that I wasn't ready. Not for her, specifically, but for what she represented. She saw me, and I had spent a long time being very comfortable being mostly unseen. I think she knew it too. We didn't have the conversation that night, but something shifted. The way things shift when two people know something at the same time and choose not to say it yet, because the saying of it will change the shape of what they have right now. And what they have right now is worth protecting for a little longer. The last time I saw her before everything changed was on the Saturday of the 5th competition, April of that year. We set up our plots. We drank coffee from her thermos. We talked about the winter, what had grown, what hadn't, what we'd learned about what the soil needed. She had brought dahlias again. New varieties this time, deep burgundy ones, dark as wine. "They're not orange," I said. "No," she said. And she said it in a way that meant something. At the end of the afternoon, when we were packing up, she came to stand near me. Not close, just near. "I got offered something," she said. "In Seattle, something real. A chance to build something on my own terms." I looked at her. "Are you going to take it?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, the kind of look that holds several questions inside it. "I think I need to," she said. I nodded, slowly. "You should," I said. And I meant it, both things at once. You should go, and it cost me something to say that. She knew both things. She received them both. She held out her hand, and I took it. And we held on for a moment that was too long to be a handshake and too short to be everything it was. "Same time next year?" she said. And I laughed, the way I'd laughed the first time. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly right. Because it was us. "Same time next year," I said. She left. I stood at my plot for a while after that. My roses this year were the burgundy and the pink and the white and the orange, all four. They'd all done well. I didn't win. I didn't mind. It's 4 a.m. now. The ceiling hasn't changed. But I feel, I don't know, emptier maybe. In the way you feel after you've finally put something down that you've been carrying in an awkward position for too long. Not lighter. Just like my hands are in the right place again. I moved to Pierce Street. The greenhouse attachment has new glass now. The light in the front room is exactly what she said it would be. I have not spoken to Bella since April. But I think about her. I think about who I am when I'm trying to be honest about what I want. Even when what I want and what's possible don't align the way I'd choose. I think she taught me that, not by being easy, by being real. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever held something at arm's length and then finally let yourself feel how much it weighed, write Saudade in the comments. That's how I'll know you made it to the end with me. And if you want more stories that feel like this one, honest and a little painful and true, the next one is waiting for you right there on your screen. Take good care of yourself. Until next time. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description.